So hello, I'm Nancy Tilbury. I'm the CEO and creative director of Studio XO. So our brand started in 2011 and we work in the space between the physical and digital. We're most known for the work we do in XOC, and the C stands for Couture, and notably making Lady Gaga fly last year. And that's not necessarily the most interesting thing that we do. We've built a fashion laboratory in London which focuses on kind of four corners of fashion designers working with coders, engineers in the hybrid space, and product design and CAD. And so we work completely simultaneously and seamlessly to create new couture, what we call couture technologies. Throughout the next year, you'll see us developing two parts of our business, XOX, which is a new sensor platform which focuses in on emotion. Luxury and fashion is incredibly poised for emotional technologies, and we just recently launched that at Cannes Lions. So this particular sensor maps the crowd and individual arousal. So super, super exciting for fashion show forums and events and all kinds of media. And then on the other side, XOB, which is a ready-to-wear line where we're converting what we do with music artists into the ready-to-wear market, which is very, very exciting because we can see a real opportunity as the fans step forward immediately to ask us for products in real time. In fact, I was sitting there having a dialogue with one of Gaga's fans this afternoon. So, yeah.
You've been working with a lot of artists, so you have experience with microphones and all that. Yeah. And most of them were actually in the music industry, like most of your clients for the couture part of your business.
Yeah, mostly. Well, actually, we were starting to work a lot with brands. Brands are stepping forward because we're so focused on future human. So, yes, we do work in fashion, and that is a big part of what we do. But I'm obsessed with the singularity movement, transhumanism, and so a lot of brands are stepping forward and saying, how does this kind of future human, future emotional lifestyle relate to us? And that's curious because we can be doing anything from making a music video to a really advanced piece of technology for the human body for an artist.
You've been starting working with wearables around the first time wearables were cool. This is like the second wave. What do you think it's different at this point, or do you think it's wearables being such a buzzword right now? Is it also kind of a danger because if investors don't see kind of immediate results or if we don't see a big success story soon, it will kind of be a missed opportunity again, and then you will have to wait for a third wave to come? What do you feel is different now, or what do you think? Where do you think things are going?
I think what's different now is what's happening, particularly in education. So particularly like the work that you're doing at London College of Fashion, there is a new vocabulary that's been shaped. Technology is primed in terms of miniaturization. As the Internet of Things is emerging, and I don't know if people know in the room about the Internet of Things, but it's ultimately a distributed interface. So up until now, we've all been walking around with our heads in our handsets, and a lot of that's about to change. A lot of that's going to be distributed around us in our homes, in the architectures of our lives, and onto the body of our clothing. So I really think that the things that are happening in material science will really impact this wave of fashion wearable technology particularly. And to compare it to way back when, so I began my career at Philips Electronics. So after graduating in women's wear from the Royal College, I went to work at Philips and helped them set up their wearable tech lab. And we had some success stories in that we released products with Levi's and Nike over the 10 years that we were sort of developing what wearable tech might be. I certainly see a lot of what it could be in DIY culture, but we're really interested in shaping a brand and building a brand in this space. And I think that actually once investors are shown that a brand can be built, or brands can be built that touch the masses like we're doing through fan culture, there is a readiness and an appetite from the consumer, and they won't be able to avoid that. And so hopefully it won't be a third wave. And I really believe that great design will impact that in the same way that Jonathan Ives has impacted Apple. Design and technology working simultaneously is what's required for wearable, particularly wearable fashion technology, to truly, truly succeed.
Yeah, I think like building the right team for wearables, it's also a big challenge startup phase, because having the fashion element in, the design element in is equally important as having the technology there. How did you how do you face that challenge with your company of hiring the right people and, you know, having processes of co-creation there?
Well, I mean, for us, we talk a lot less about technology and science, even though it's really, you know, critical in what we do. I've heard a lot of people talking about innovation and storytelling today, and that still stands, and that's really, really important, particularly in the luxury market. I think it's about co-creation. The single designer model, particularly if we're talking about fashion, is, I think, there to be challenged and disrupted. In our team, it's important that the coder sits with a fashion designer and they shape a very interesting creative vocabulary that can often be quite phosphorus. I would encourage people, you know, inside of the big houses to be thinking about employing some of these labs that are emerging, particularly, you know, a fashion lab like ours, you know, where you can have a dream, have an ambition, have an effect that you want to, you know, clothes need and want to do more. We're at that stage, you know, why don't we have digital skins when everything else around us is broadcasting? It's kind of bonkers, really. But you need that bridge. And what we've done at Studio XO, I think, is create that bridge and vocabulary. So we're really focused on not only creating our own product, but infrastructures for the fashion industry to succeed in this space and collaborate with us. It's all about collaboration. So we're particularly zoning in on building our own fashion operating system that we can offer, you know, collaboration with the houses so that they can start to have their garments create effects and dreams and really take fashion out of the dark ages and into this new, you know, new space.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, the last thing you mentioned about taking fashion out of the dark ages, because I think it's interesting enough for something that it's so close to us, like something that we wear and we interact with daily, that you see technology brands leading in terms of innovation, of, you know, pushing the envelope when it comes to wearable, where fashion, you see them collaborating with tech companies on that. So you saw DVF collaborate with Google to design Google Glass, or some other well-known fashion brands collaborate with smaller startups that have to do with wearables, but it's almost as if they are afraid to put their name first when it comes to something so new. Do you think it's a fear that, you know, it's too risky for them and, you know, protecting their brand name? Or do you think it's that they essentially have a lack of connection with technology? I mean, they seem to be, you know, willing to spend a lot of their budget to collaborations that seem more to be PR moves rather than something more deeply integrated.
I think up until this point, there hasn't been a need or a desire from particularly the fashion industry to seek out these new effects. And I think a lot of people have felt it's not been broken, so what are we trying to fix? However, we keep going to these endless shows, and I really think it's we're at a real crossroads. There's a change coming, and fashion, I think at this point is not acting like music did 10 years ago.
You know, in Europe, it's funny because a lot of people say that, you know, entrepreneurs shouldn't be afraid of failure when it comes to the startup scene, and you've seen a lot of people pushing for that in the European scene. But from my interaction so far with fashion designers at London College of Fashion and all that, it almost feels as if there the taboo is success. So people are afraid to actually, you know, think commercially or make money because they are afraid that the fashion crowd will say they compromise or something like that. So it's interesting to see that, you know, startup people are afraid of failing, and fashion people are almost afraid of being successful. It's a really, you know, funny thing, and maybe wearables it's the right place to, you know, kind of defeat both of these fears.
But I mean, from our point of view, wearable tech has its own sort of category in sports and fitness and health. I think what we should really think about is fashion is hugely emotional. People are really passionate about it, and the types of effects that we're going to want from fashion product are very, very different than tracking your steps. And I think there's never before been an environment in which the fashion industry can touch technology properly. You know, I feel the materials that our tech team bring to us, and I say, I want silicon to be silk, and it's not yet. And I think that's what we were talking about before, so when, so we've gone through fashion tech, e-commerce, and we've been through that space, and that was tricky terrain for the fashion industry to manage. But now as technology actually merges onto the body, there's going to be a lot of question about, so, let's take Celine, for example. Phoebe would not want garments that are flashing and screaming, and she's going to want to move from a beautiful black to a midnight blue. And it's really, I think, for the technology companies to really understand that hybrid space, how to shape that vocabulary to talk to those types of designers and make authentic product that's meaningful. And you can see actually the drive's not coming necessarily from the houses, it's coming from the consumers. They're emerging saying, in Generation Digital, why don't my sneakers talk to my Instagram? Surely, why is it that my jacket is not an interface, an extended interface of myself? So I think all of these things really are about new business models, shaping new business models, and that for us is why we didn't go to the fashion industry first. We went and formed partnerships with people like Gaga, who had the courage and ambition to bring fashion wearable tech into the appropriate markets with the right consumers.
I think the fact that you bootstrap your business so far, which I find completely admirable, I think it also gave you that opportunity to be more free and really think out of the box and be creative. Because I think a lot of, startups that are starting are trying to solve all the, questions tech community usually has. So what problem does it solve? Like I've spent a lot of money on a lot of stuff when it comes to fashion that doesn't solve any problem at all. Maybe they create some problems for my feet because they hurt, but they don't really solve anything. But investors as well, you see, are focusing to more measurable things like fitness apps and anything that has to do with a sensor. Do you think like maybe the startup scene around wearables is in a funk right now because there is a need to satisfy the tech community or perhaps investors, and they're kind of afraid to try something different?
I think that's got its own groove, and I suppose for us, we like to think of ourselves as being part of a new community that's emerging, particularly out of the London scene, actually. And it's not been really dominant in our minds. The products that we're creating in our ready-to-wear line are driven by our customers. We really understand Generation Digital because they step forward and talk to us directly, and for that reason, we can evidence to investors, a really, really, really interesting new business model across the fashion platform. And then I think what we've been doing through our collaborations in sort of music and dance and media is, for us, that's the new couture. We don't have to stick hundreds of dresses down a runway in a Baroque room. There are other ways to create couture. Somebody put a slide up and said this morning, it is all about experience. I think the guy that worked with Karl Lagerfeld, that's music to my ears, because I think we should be creating intelligent experiences that use material science, new technology, fusing, through collaborations and then that results in you being able to transform technology. So, for example, with the blushing dress that you see up there, we built a few years back a dress that could read and measure arousal, and Gaga called it until she shot it for Born This Way. We've now just produced a commercial sensor that measures arousal and are getting loads and loads of traction with that, and that will satisfy those more traditional wearable tech investors, because we believe emotion to be the next layer on all these intelligent devices that are in our lives, on our lives. As you said, your phone is practically on your body and is wearable as is. So, I think those emotional technologies will bridge the gap between luxury, fashion, and some of the more traditional technologies. But I think it will be once we form some of these relationships like we've done with Gaga, with people in the houses, and they can see that there's just a new school. I referred to it recently as, there is a tsunami coming, there's a change, there's new brands breaking through, there's new designers with new ideas and ideals and effects for fashion. And I think that technology and material science particularly will transform that, and it's time for that industry to wake up and look out, mix the old guard with the new.
What has been, would you consider the biggest challenge you've faced so far? Was it, going from some, isolated project to having a vision to build a company? How do you go for a project to a product to a company? What was it, the biggest challenge? Was it scalability? Was it production? Was it building the right team? Funding? What do you think it's the biggest challenge right now?
I think Team is incredibly important. It's everything, and we've really dug deep and invested in people to ensure that we have all the capabilities that are required to build great, authentic, long-term fashion wearable tech. On a very personal level, I think the biggest challenge for me was stepping out of the fashion industry into a big technology company, cutting my stripes for 10 years and not doing what some of my friends did, come to Paris or go to Milan and really trailblaze really early on in their careers, invest and understand intellectual property, understand how to shape a business model in this space, see and hear and collaborate, form dialogue that's authentic with engineers, coders, so that when I'm able to sit in the room, that exactly the same as you've had, in the work that you do, that we're authentic, and particularly as being women in tech, being able to walk in the room and have a voice, have a position.
I think, it's a great time for Europe and women, of course, when it comes to wearables. We were at a wearable conference in London at Ravensbourg, and everybody was commenting, like, if wearables is the future, women are at a great space. Most of the panels were all women, very few men. It seems like it's a great position for us. But also, I think for Europe, it's a great opportunity, because you can have all the talent to build that right team, which is key, because we have tons of fashion talent, tons of experience around building lifestyle products and luxury products. And we also have very strong technical talent as well. In US, even in San Francisco, they may have all the technical talent in the world, they may have money going around, but when it comes to fashion, they really need to reach out and attract people there. I think it was very telling when Apple hired Angela from Burberry. I think, it tells that, we have very strong talent here. Do you think it's an opportunity for Europe as well? And, what really needs to kind of change to really bring these worlds together to build something strong?
I think, being in Paris or London or Berlin, and even, dare I mention, New York, I think just being outside of the Valley, in the fashion capitals where urban luxury product particularly emerges, and a lot of street culture plays a dominant role, and people are effectively sort of reshaping fashion. I think that's incredibly important, and certainly we're able to cultivate skills in London, and I think it's an attractive market to be in. So for that, working with developers and coders, they're really turned on by the complexity of the human body. It's a difficult territory to engineer, so it's a great engineering challenge, and I love that. And what's wonderful is when we talk about technology is feminizing technology, not necessarily it being women, but our team is very balanced between male and female. But I think the products that we create are they have soul in terms of technology, and they have femininity, and I think that's going to be key for bridging that gap to luxury and fashion.
Thank you so much.